welcome to the Saturday morning EBS Facebook meditation. I'm back in Scarborough, Maine this morning. We've got some sunshine and the temps are supposed to be pretty okay, seasonal, but they're also telling us that we're going to have some really high winds today. So that may impact the pleasure that I get anyway from being outside. I'll be out there, but we'll see how it goes with all that wind. And I'm going to talk about something for a few minutes that you might be really getting kind of tired of hearing about. And that is the incident that happened on the Oscars between Chris Rock and Will Smith. So, I've been watching a little bit more TV since I've been up here in Maine than I usually do. I usually turn on the Today Show in the morning when I'm drinking coffee, wanting to kind of catch up on things and do something a little bit mindless while I'm trying to wake up. But I didn't watch the Oscars. I'm just not one. I'm just not a big fan of following celebrities and that whole part of our culture that goes along with that. But anyway, I've been seeing this cut from the Oscars when Will Smith got up on the stage and hit Chris Rock. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's just such a perfect example. I mean, this is like a classroom example of how meditation can be helpful and what process happens in our brain and how we can interrupt that process and perhaps be a bit more compassionate. So in the clip, and of course this has progressed over and over throughout the week, but basically, what we see in the clip is that Chris Rock tells some jokes about Jada Smith, who is married to Will Smith. And Jada and Will are sitting there on the front row at the Oscars. And what we may or may not know, we know now, is that Jada has shaved her hair because she has a condition that causes her hair to fall out. And personally, from a Zen perspective, I think it's beautiful that we often embrace our baldness. But then again, that's my opinion. So we know that comedians like Chris Rock get famous because they're willing to just push that envelope a little bit further than many of us are actually comfortable with. So he makes this joke, and then the camera goes to the audience, and you see Will and Jada. And actually, Will at this point is laughing, kind of a chuckle, and Jada has a very stern look on her face. So was he laughing out of discomfort? Did he actually think the joke was funny? Who knows? He might remember what was going through his mind, but we don't know. Now, it wasn't a kind thing for him to do, but it's also something that we see occur frequently with comedians in these type situations. So after we see the flash go to Will chuckling and Jada with this stern look on her face, Will Smith gets up, walks across the stage, and on live television hits Chris Rock in the face. Well, now Chris is getting, a fair amount of attention about how well he handled this. And, again, we could judge back and forth. Well, was he in the wrong? Who was in the wrong? Who was in the right? But there's really no need to even go there. One of the best write-ups I've seen was by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I think I'm mispronouncing his name, but that he had posted something about how, some people defended Will's actions based on chivalry, and, how that's just really an excuse often when men act violent, that they're protecting their woman, so to speak. So anyway, all different kinds of things have come out of this. And we see Chris Rock recover pretty quickly, and now we're hearing all the news about, well, why was Will still allowed to get up and get his Oscar, and why wasn't he escorted out? And a lot of people backtracking at this point and adding information to kind of look good, I guess, or maybe in their own head they're kind of processing what happened and maybe what they should have done a little bit different. And Will Smith has apologized for his actions. So the point in me bringing this up is that because we're able to see this over and over and over and analyze what happened, we can see so well how a meditation practice, a mindfulness practice, being in the present moment, how helpful it can be for us. Now, who knows from the view of Hollywood what people feel, but let's make an assumption at this point that if Will Smith could have done this over, that he would not have, in front of millions of people, hit Chris Rock. So, if we go through that to see how meditation may have helped him, well, I titled this, What Would Thai Do? And most of you may know that when I say Thai, I'm referring to Thich Nhat Hanh. We could say, what would Jesus do, or what would Buddha do? But I like to think of Thai when I think of someone who really sets an example for me, because he's someone I actually met, someone who lived during my lifetime, and I can relate. I can relate to that a lot. So here's what we can say about Will Smith and what may have gone through his head, and if he was in the present moment, and if he were a meditator, which I don't know, he may be for all I know. I mean, those of us who meditate certainly don't always make the best decisions either. But we often have some stimulus in our environment. In this case, the stimulus was possibly the words said by Chris Rock. From what I saw in the videos, my guess is that maybe the stimulus was not even those words, but it was the look on Jada's face. Or perhaps she even said something to her husband to let him know that she was offended. So whichever stimulus it was related to that kicked in a thought to Will Smith. That thought, again, we don't know exactly what it was. He may not know exactly what it was. But that thought triggered an emotion. That emotion was what we often refer to as a negative emotion, whether it was hate or anger or embarrassment. What exactly that emotion was, we're just going to put it in that category of a negative emotion. And what often occurs with these emotions is that we then react. So the process is pretty simple. And this one instant, helps us really break it down. So there's a stimulus in your environment. That stimulus triggers a thought. That thought triggers an emotion. And then we act. And often that act is something that in retrospect we wish we hadn't done. So, meditation helps us to understand that and to slow down the process. So, what happens for us then when we meditate, we notice a thought arising. Perhaps we notice a stimulus first, and then we notice this thought arising. And what we do is we sit with that thought for just a moment, and we notice the emotion that arises along with that thought. And then we pause. Because what we know is that emotions are physiological processes that occur in our body, often related to trauma, fight, flight, freeze, very primitive things that are occurring in our body. And we just sit with that for a moment, and we notice the emotion rises, and we notice at some point the emotion falls. Once that emotion falls, we're able to take a breath and then respond in a way that is kind and compassionate. Now, it doesn't mean you stuff your emotion. It doesn't mean that you allow something to just be overlooked. But what it does allow is for that part of our brain that can think logically and not just react, that part of the brain engages. And hopefully we respond in a helpful way that's helpful to both you and to the other person that you're responding to. So instead of reacting, we think, we pause, we notice, we respond. And often that response may be to just walk away. Again, we haven't stuffed the emotion. We've made a decision. And we've made a decision that is kind and compassionate, not just to ourselves, but to others. So I'm going to stop there. Allow us to just start our own meditation. We'll sit here silently for about 14 minutes. And just notice if there's stimulus around us, or sometimes our brain creates these stimuli. It comes up. We notice it. We notice that thought, that emotion rise and fall. And then the logical part of the brain kicks in. And so I notice how thought arises. I notice this emotion that comes up with that thought. It could be a very pleasant thought, bringing up what I would label as a pleasant emotion. But even that will rise and fall. If it's what I would call an unpleasant thought, maybe an anxiety or a fear that comes up with that emotion attached to it. Again, that thought triggering that fear or anxiety. And it comes up. Unfortunately, occasionally, that emotion can feel just too overwhelming. But more likely, it comes up, we notice it, and if we can just sit with it for a moment, it just drops away. We can return to our breathing. And of course, knowing that this whole process will happen over and over again. As thoughts come and go, we just return our attention to the breath, noticing how the breath just enters our body with almost no effort on our part. Fills up the belly, fills up the chest, perhaps helps us to open the heart, and then just releases as the next breath just naturally comes in. So, as our time comes to an end, I'd just like to dedicate the merits from our meditation to my teachers, Thich Nhat Hanh, Joan Halifax, Anna Cox, and the other teachers that we don't always appreciate quite as much. Those are the teachers that we refer to as our mistakes, the things that we do that we learn from. And so thank you all for joining me. I'm not sure if I introduced myself at the beginning, but my name is Lisa Raichu Kessler. And I hope you have a beautiful day.